pretty fortunate to have as our next speaker Joel Rogers, who's not only professor of law, sociology, and political science in Madison at the University of Wisconsin, but is the national chair of the new party.
He said everybody else ran over their time, and so you don't have any. And I embrace this. This seems as fair as capitalism. Okay. So business dominance of American public life is as full, as complete as any time since the 1920s. And business dominance of our private lives is probably greater than it's ever been. Business, profit-seeking business, essentially owns our political system. It owns the political parties. It funds their conventions. It provides a lion's share of the $1 billion in private cash that will decide this year who even gets to play the electoral game, much less decide who wins it. It owns the major media, and a lot of the minor ones, too, of communication that tell us how to interpret our society, including the actions of those pup dogs known as leaders that never restrain their business leash. It essentially controls our private lives through choices of recreation, you know, family style, eating habits even. We're free still to choose our drugs and surf the channels, but essentially most of the choices are in place. It determines the conditions under which we live as adults in neighborhoods that its rootlessness helps destroy, or in cities that are turning into charnel houses under the white heat of its, or the cold heat really, of its divestment. It determines what the jobs are like, whether they're here or whether they're not, whether they are good or bad. And it determines largely our future by determining investment, whether it's going to be schools or prisons, whether it's going to be pollution or parks, whether it's going to be housing or homelessness, and where the jobs again are going to be. And business does that today with a ruthlessness, sort of swaggering ruthlessness that we might reasonably mistake as glee, with a keening greed that it appears to mistake as a birthright, and with a blank indifference to all that is good and human: love and hope, respect, dignity, fear, concern, obligation, conscience, that is so complete that we might characterize it properly as monstrous. You know that already. Business rules America. Let freedom ring. You know, we have business skills. Labor needs some business skills, planning skills, organizational skills. There are economic geographers out there who can do regional labor market analyses. There are people who are decent economists who can help labor pinpoint the exact point, the pressure point, the little solar plexus button that you could push to bring down whole production chains and commodity chains and help organize workers. We should turn that over. And just as the right in the early 1970s said, okay, we're going to take over this country, and the way we're going to do it is capture a bunch of intellectuals, and we're going to have them produce just tons of junk. Just tons. Books and case studies and made-up studies and empirical studies and fake studies. We should do the same. You don't want to just nibble around with 15-cent, 20-cent minimum wage increases. You want to double the minimum wage over 3 years, excite, you know, huge amounts of capital investment, and effectively unionize the service sector. We want to have starting gate equality for kids. We want to wed American notions of equal opportunity to the material resources making it possible. It is a sin, as McLaughlin was saying, that those kids are working with 30-year-old textbooks. Every kid in America, we should say, along with Marion and Marion Wright Edelman and everybody else, every kid should be fed, clothed, housed, decently fed, and insured. Eventually they'll grow up and then vote for national health insurance. And minimally, we deserve that in this country. New party has been doing the last couple of years is running people on precisely these sorts of terms, operating with zero money. We've run, I guess, about 150 elections. We've elected 100 people to local levels of office. And now what they're doing is they're, you know, doing things like living wage ordinances and land use reform and, you know, model school reform and stuff like that. If we do it with zero money, imagine, and actually win, imagine what a little cash would enable all of us to do. 35 million is a figure that comes irresistibly to mind. That was... That, of course, is the money that Labor spent. That, of course, is the money that Labor spent, I think, quite wisely on advertising and membership education in the 1996 election. At present, business rules America. But as remote as the prospect is, there's absolutely really no reason why we couldn't do it ourselves. That was the old idea. What What that requires, though, of those who are stirred by these changes at the AFL-CIO, the ascension of new leadership, their obvious openness to new forces and so on, is a willingness to take a little bit more leadership from labor in a common program of democratic reconstruction. And what it requires of labor is that leadership itself. If you exert it, you're going to be confident, you can be confident there are going to be millions and millions of unorganized Americans, including a lot of unorganized progressive activists, who recognize labor's fight as their own. You are us, or will soon be, we hope, and we know we must become you, in the sense of organized, independent, in the economy and on the street, if unchecked business power is going to be checked. So let's check it with some muscle. But also, always, beneath the muscle, hear the beating of the heart. American public opinion is conventionally mapped as running from a liberal to a conservative end, or on a liberal-conservative axis. And over here you got sort of big government do-gooders whose only popular value is toleration, not a particularly popular value. And over here you got free marketeering rich people without hearts, and maybe some ungodly fundamentalists as well. And most of the population, of course, finds itself in the middle, distracted by these two extremes and finding neither one of them attractive. What progressives have for too long done is to find themselves over here as the all-time redistributionist, hyper-tolerant, anything goes, do-gooders, big government, etc., without any concern for social contribution or order, the all-time, tolerant types. And what you essentially need to do, and what is being recommended here, and what we all ought to just get on board and do, is to take that axis and rotate it 90 degrees. And say, the fight now is not between left, right in the conventional sense, certainly not the liberal-conservative thing. The fight is between those who want to impose some human values, again, in this economy, and build a democracy strong enough to enforce it. That's the majority, gang. And those who don't want to do even that. That's Michael Eisner and his lawyers.